Greetings. Some of you may have found this video by accident, but other people may have seen my other horn demonstration videos and such, and a lot of vintage horns and Selmers and such. And I thought it'd be cool to make a video showing another horn that I like, which is the 82Z. You know, a modern current horn. This is an 82Z2, so somewhat of the latest version. It's not the Atelier version, which is a whole other thing. More money too. Hard to get. Anyway, I had one of these before. I got it on trade, and I liked it so much. I was thrilled about it. But I ended up having to trade that one to get a horn that I couldn't pass up. So I went and got another one, another used one. Very nice condition. I like the black lacquer. I haven't tried all the other types of lacquer, but a friend of mine told me these are kind of brighter, so I go for that. Anyway, this is a C1 sterling neck. Came with my other one and I kept it. I like it better than the V1 that the horn comes with. I wouldn't mind trying some other finishes rather than sterling. I don't know, but this neck sounds good. So there it is. Anyway, this is an 82Z, and I thought it'd be cool to hear myself how I sound differently. And then for you folks who are used to hearing me on those vintage horns, you'll hear that this thing does its own thing very well. Definitely has its thing. There it is. That's my 82Z. I plan to keep it. It's a great option. Has a precise feeling to it at the same time as a lot of color and depth. Alright, so here is the same reed mouthpiece. I haven't even adjusted it. Haven't even done anything. And this is on a 1950 SBA, maybe 49. Looks like a early 40,000 SBA. is. SBA, for comparison. Why don't we do a 6? Same setup, same reed, same mouthpiece. Magically, they just morphed from like teleported from one horn to the other without any change. The atoms are all in the same place. Here they go. This is an 87,000 Mark 6. Here is like a 41,000 SBA with original pads. Never had a thing done to it, really. Why not? Same setup. Can't say it's playing amazing. Magically, a 70,000 Mark 6 tenor. This is the Count Red Hastings, Lowell Hastings tenor. I had a little time to think, just to talk about what my impressions are, because normally I can't think when I'm playing, and after I play a bunch of horns, I'm just confused. So what I think about the 82Z compared to the Selmers, the vintage Selmers, it's really not a Mark 6 copy. I mean, you know, I'm sure they took a lot from it. Definitely the action was based on it, right? But the air column is just not a Mark 6 feeling. To be clear, I think it is darker than the Mark 6s that I like. I mean, the ones that I personally play, that tend to be a little bit bright and buzzy. They have people say a dark core. I mean, whatever that means. The center of the sound definitely appears to be dark, but it has a sort of a clacking buzz on top that the edge appears to be bright. I mean, these things are hard to explain. But the 82Z is darker. Not exactly the core of the sound, but the buzz appears to be darker to me. It's not a bright horn. You would think, oh, it's modern, it's going to be bright, you know, it's made to play with all these electronic instruments and whatever. Well, okay, but actually this one, I think they made it to have that vintage sound, and it's kind of dark. I wouldn't say it's a dark horn, but just it's not brighter than a Mark 6 or an SBA. It's probably you know, it might be brighter than the dark horns. Maybe it's brighter than those. You know, I have some horns that are darker than this, but you know, plenty of them. This would be a little bit darker. So that's a little bit, you know, unexpected. Other than that, just in terms of spread and focus, this is not as focused as a Selmer, a vintage Selmer, any of the vintage Selmers. I mean, let's say balanced action onward. It is not as focused as a balanced action, as a super action, as a Mark 6. Those are more centered type of horns. This is like, you know, it's got quite a spread to it, but something they did with it, you know, they made it so that it spreads. It's like it's a big swimming pool inside there. It's like in the air column, it's a big sound. And I have to say, coming from the perspective of somebody who plays those kind of centered horns, it's easy to get a little bit lost in this sound. If you're looking for it to center in, it's pretty big. But they did something with it that makes it like it's broad, it spreads, but then it has that gas pedal, that accelerator, where, you know, when you lean on it, it kind of centers in and gets edgy and centered and brighter. They figured that one out. It has some of that, but it's different, you know, than a Mark 6 or a 5-digit Mark 6 or a super action. They're just not as spread as this. And, you know, they might not be as loud. I mean, this is loud. It's spread, but it's loud. The intonation is, you know, really precise and modern. And in a certain way, you know, they made it so the response is pretty even throughout the horn. It's, you know, more consistent than vintage horns would be. And somehow, in a way, with doing that, they made it so you don't have to struggle so hard to center it. So it's like, because it's so even, you can just like lock onto a particular method of playing and just blow, and the horn sort of does the rest for you. And once you get your mouth method in order, I mean, that's true for any horn, right? But for this one, it's like somehow they made it that it's spread, but it doesn't make you want to work so hard to center it, maybe because it's loud enough already. But it's a different feeling. Yeah, for me, it can still be a little bit hard to center, just for me, because I'm used to vintage Selmers. But, you know, it's got a really beautiful sound. I think it excels in the left hand. I think the right hand is, it's just like, because it's so consistent and precise, it's like it has this one response throughout the whole horn. And I think that response works really well with the left hand. And with the right hand, it's like it's doing the same thing as the left, and it's it's not working out quite as well. I still think it's really good, but one of the things with like a vintage Selmer is it's not that consistent. It's like, okay, you have your altissimo response, and then your palm key response, and your left hand response, and your right hand response octave, and then you go down, and it's different on the bottom. Everything's kind of a little bit different throughout the whole horn, but that works because inherently, these are different. They're different bores, different air columns going through different shape tubes, and I don't think they should be all the same. They don't. The demands of the lower vibration down here are not the same as the demands of the higher frequencies, and having them adhere to the same sort of principle throughout, isn't necessarily. Although we think ideologically that sounds great, in terms of the way the horn works, it's like myself, I prefer with a vintage Selmer. It's like, okay, it has this specific thing it does on the altissimo. And the palm keys, they speak a certain way, and the left hand has its own vibe, and then you get down to the right hand, it's like, all right, is that working? And some Selmers are kind of like, they can be dead on the right hand, like the D and the E can be muddy, and so when you're looking for a good, most people will say this, but me definitely, when you're looking for a good Mark 6 or something like that, you're looking for one that speaks on the D and E, on a tenor, like how much ringing, how much sizzle do they have when you push them on the D and E, or do they not? When you push them on the D and E, they just come like a woofy, muddy sound. Like, and I mean that can be due to overhaul too. But some horns inherently, you push them down here and they're just big, broad sound without any edge, no shine on them, no sizzle, and that's like, okay, that horn is not going to shine the whole thing. You can pretty much define the horn by the D and E, how they speak when you blow them loud. And they're not, speaking the same way as the left hand. So, but it's an indicator of the whole horn. But, for example, they're just, it's different. The different areas of the horn are different on vintage Selmer, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, these days we think, it's not consistent. It's, they're not as precise. Well, there's a reason. I mean, it's true. They're not as precise, and that works. To really get a great tone, that works. That precision, in a sense, it's like putting everything in line and making it all work the same. I don't necessarily think that's better. I tend to like optimizing, if you get a horn that's really optimized for each area of the horn. Sometimes people will buy a horn, they'll try to find a vintage 6 or something like that, or whatever horn it is. Sometimes people will buy a horn because the particular area of the horn is optimized so well that it suits their playing preference. Like you read all those old articles about jazz players and they say, so-and-so is, really great in the upper register, blah, blah, or so-and-so is really good in the middle. And, one of my teachers would say that, you can't, as a player, you can't be good in all areas. Like some people, they're specifically great on the low end, and if they're really great on the low end, they won't be great on the high end. Vice versa, some people are great hitting the high notes, but on the low end they're not too great. I mean, and this is actually pretty true. I mean, it's really true in a lot of cases. I mean, we could look at Coltrane. It's like my favorite, and Coltrane was not that great on the low end. I mean, he's great on the high end and the middle and everything like that. But when he gets on the low end, most of the time when he's playing, you hear he doesn't care too much. He lets those notes break up. It's like not his preference to play really full on the low end. So he wasn't like in my opinion, not an excellent low-end player, although he did fine with it. It works for the music. It's like no problem. But you can tell that because of his armature style, that he was like, all right, let that go. He's not focusing too much. He lets those notes break up a bit. So, some people, if they were not so focused on the low end, if that wasn't their preference, they're not going to look for a horn that's like so good on the low end. Maybe that's not their issue. They're looking for a horn that's better on the middle or the high. So people could find horns that are optimized in a certain way that suit their playing style. A horn like this is like most new horns, they're trying to optimize them so they play all over the horn perfectly. And that is a noble pursuit. Does it work? Maybe it does. Maybe for certain people that's where it's at. Maybe it makes the whole horn easier to play. So I'm not making a judgment call. I'm just saying, there are two ways to look at this. It's like, jack of all trades, master of none. And I think that making a horn that is perfect all the way through and adheres to a certain certain vibration the whole way through. It's like, you know, it's an ideal that I think we all ideologically would strive for. But when the practicalities of it, you know, maybe that works great for some people who are consistent players in a certain way and not standouts in any particular areas, whereas other people are standouts in certain ways. And if the horn is too consistent, then it doesn't have any standout areas. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say is, you know, these horns are designed, I think, I mean, I imagine just from playing it, that they don't have standout areas, that everything is sort of brought in line. And, you know, that's a noble pursuit. At the same time, you know, does it work in terms of producing a really dynamic sound, you know, like a really good Mark VI or something? Well, maybe. And the other question is, you know, does it really achieve that, you know, getting everything in line to a standard? I don't know. I think that whether or not they try to do that, I think the left hand is better. I think it's optimized for left hand. I think the right hand's a little bit muddy for me. See, that has a shine on the left hand. It loses its shine down on the right hand. To me, it's sort of muddy on the right. Now, that's, you know, a lot of horns are like that. They'll have one thing or the other. So that's one of the comments I have. You know, I could take, like, for example, let's look at the 87,000 Mark VI, and like that horn has a shine all over it. Doesn't mean that it's ideal in all areas. I mean, again, it's not perfect. No horn really is. But let's see. Let's take a look at the shine. See the difference? So left hand. Right hand. Still got more shine on the right than the 82Z. And the lower register. And the right hand. So it's a different kind of thing in terms of how it sizzles. I think the 82Z has more sizzle on the left hand upper register, even the lower register, the left hand, and on the right it becomes a little more dull. But it's loud as a bugger. It's loud, and you know, it's big and it's broad and it's extremely fun to play, and it has a real beauty to the tone. I shouldn't eat the horn. Well, I mean, it's gorgeous, and all that room in the sound, combined with the volume, makes it so that you can play mid or quiet, you know, level of force, and it's super pretty, you know, because it's like you're playing right in the middle, and there's so much more you can go that you can really nuance it without, you know, you don't have to, you're not, it's like if you're working less hard, you know, you can put more beauty in the sound. So, you know, I'm a fan of this horn. I'm still learning about it and getting to, you know, forming an intimate relationship with it. How that's done, I'll keep that in private, but yeah, I mean, they're really, really good. what can I say? I'm still more used to Mark 6, but it's really good. Like I said, I'd like to try some different necks, but that C1 solid silver neck is doing the thing for me. So there it is. Those are some of my thoughts about it. I think they tried to, you know, people talk about, you know, this is Selmer copies of the new horns. I mean, I think that's true to a certain extent, definitely in terms of key work, and in some ways, in terms of probably that C1 neck is kind of a Selmer copy idea. But overall, the horn has as much, you know, king and con in it as it does Selmer. You know, it almost feels like more of a king thing, you know, the spread, the blasting spread. So there it is, 82Z comparison. Thank you.